This is the Bitcoin Otter Radio Show.
Oh my God, I love you so much!
On 97.7 FM, The City.
Greetings, blessings, and good fortune, everybody. It's another episode of the Bitcoin Otter Show. It's Thursday. We're going out from the McAllen Creative Incubator. Great place. We got a bunch of kids running around there. There's artsy-fartsy stuff all over the place. We're also going out on 97.7 KCYP, The City. Thank you for watching. Also, YouTube. We got, Facebook, which I'm going to log into right now. And you got any comments? Come on with them. We're gonna be watching. We're gonna be listening. We're gonna have your comments out there. I'm going on the Bitcoin Otter Facebook right now, and then I'll be getting on the Christopher Ott Facebook here on the iPad that Mrs. Otter gifted us last birthday. That was wonderful. So I'm just going to have to control this volume here. Facebook. The other way. There we go. So, a lot happening this week, everybody. We know this, okay? We've tried to prepare for this. But it's happening, literally, before our eyes. Things are happening. Now, they're not happening all at once. They're certainly not happening fast enough for some of us. But they are happening, okay? Again, the economic barometer, I'm going to give you some numbers here. Bitcoin is at 85,103. You might think, well, you know what? We're hearing all these big things about Bitcoin. Well, yeah, you are. But at the same time, you're not hearing the bad things about Bitcoin, which would be, Bitcoin's, no longer useful. Bitcoin is not being adopted. Bitcoin is, the bottom's falling out of the price. None of that. None of that. Very stable, very much a wanted commodity. It's in demand. It's in demand, and hopefully you have, at the very least, a little bag of it. Going to look at the comments here. Live chat. Nothing yet. All right. So, silver, $32.78. Okay? $32.78 for silver. That means that you can still get silver. One, that's a good thing. Two, it's still low for average people like us. Gold, on the other hand, I'm not saying it's going into crazy, nobody can get it prices yet, but it's at 3,338 back in show prep time about an hour ago, 2 hours ago. Average mortgage rate, still up there, but getting better, right? 30-year rate, 6.76%, and the 15-year locked-in rate at 6.01%. So it's coming down, as all ugly economic things are under a true president. So going into crypto news, this is from Cointelegraph. Fed's Powell reasserts support for stablecoin legislation. Wow. So the Federal Reserve, possibly the most evil entity in the world, it's now reasserting support for stablecoin legislation. Now, what does that mean? It means that they are dipping their toes, so to speak, into the crypto sphere, but they're doing it under the, I guess you could call it the omnipresence, the all-present federal regulation. And it's not federal, it's the Federal Reserve. So it's non-governmental. So it's the bankers' rules. So if cryptos come along with bankers' rules, then they're okay, right? What is a shortcut to know or understand bankers' rules? It is they get a cut. What do regulations mean? They get a cut. What do they advertise? It's going to be stable. It's going to be a good environment for all. It's going to be fair. Victims will have redress for injustices, et cetera, which to some degree will probably be true to some degree. But the fact of the matter is, when a bank is involved, it means they get a cut. They are the mafia, okay? They are the international criminal cartel. Now, there are cartels for every different, item, business, commodity, whatever you want to call it. However, when it comes to banking, the Federal Reserve is the big kahuna, okay? The big evil kahuna. So, Powell, of course, is, he's the right now, the figurehead for the Federal Reserve. He says, that Jerome Powell, I'm talking about him, said this: stablecoins are a digital product that can actually have fairly wide appeal and should contain consumer protections. What does he mean by consumer protections? He means they want a cut. And in return for that cut, they'll let you play in the banking world, the Federal Reserve banking world. So I don't know how this is going to play out. If you have any comments, throw them up there. What I do know, or what I do actually believe, is that not only are they dying, not only will they be slain, okay, by the righteous, those of us that don't want to pay a middleman, but they are struggling under the water. It's kind of like the analogy of the duck, right? It looks nice and calm on the surface, but man, underneath the water, he's paddling. So that's what I think we're seeing right now. And hopefully, we're going to be able to deal with them summarily. CNBC, and I know I don't usually, and for good reason, quote CNBC, but check this out. Tokenization of the market, from stocks to bonds to real estate, is coming, says BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, another arch criminal, if we can solve one problem. Now, as we have mentioned, I want to say we've been on for going on 3 years now. Thank you all for watching and listening during this time. But the fact of the matter is, these things have been on their way for many years. And guys like Larry Fink, of course, want their cut. He wants his part of it. His company, the evil BlackRock, okay, they want a piece of, well, everything. There's just no denying that. They want everything. So they are just now getting into the fact that, hey, items, assets can be tokenized. Well, of course they can. The technology has been out there long ago, okay? But they didn't have the ability to siphon off a bit for themselves. So that's why they haven't spoken about it. Perhaps they've found the way now. Let's see what his one problem might be. Unlike traditional paper certificates signifying financial ownership, tokens live securely on a blockchain, enabling instant buying, selling, and transfers without paperwork or waiting, much like a digital deed, he wrote. Okay? So here's his problem, according to him. But there's one big problem, says he. One technology challenge that stands in the way: the lack of coordinated digital identity verification system. Now, he is lying. He is lying out of his teeth, because he's a liar and an evil. Yeah, we're on Facebook, we're on other things, kids are watching. So I won't tell you what he really is in the vernacular. So we'll leave that up to people like Cardi B. So what I'm going to say is, there is, of course, there are many people smarter than Fink, maybe not as criminal as he is, but smarter. There is a token out there, okay? It is called Veritasium. Do your homework, ladies and gentlemen, because Veritasium is where it's at. Veritasium is the benchmark for identity and verification of identity. The things that Veritasium can do were not based on the perspective that a Larry Fink would have. The things that Veritasium can do is based from the perspective that you and I have, meaning we have an identity. We don't want everyone to have all of the parts. Sometimes we must give up a part of our identity. Let me give an example. So you need to give up a driver's license at one point or another to do things or to buy things, unless, of course, you're a Democrat and then you believe that minorities cannot obtain such a thing. So when you use your, let's say your for this instance, your ID is your driver's license, you don't always want to give, or almost never want to give, your social security number with that too, unless you know that for sure you're dealing with someone that is not going to steal your info. They're not going to, hey, Sue, good to see you. Hi, Dad. Glad you could watch today. So these are the things that we want protected. Well, Reggie, okay, and I can't remember his last name, of Veritasium. If anybody can remember Reggie, he's a legend, guys. This guy is a legend, okay? But he is unknown in most of the world because the banking people don't want him to be known. Because what he is about is serving people with his technology. He's not about serving the banks. He has so many patents. It's amazing. His patents are being broken every single day. Okay, by mainstream politics, by upstarts, well, you name it, but his patents are being broken. So Sue says, Veritasium builds blockchain-based peer-to-peer capital markets as software on a global scale. And there's a lot more there, obviously. I can't remember Reggie's last name, though. Any entity with internet access can participate in these capital markets on a peer-to-peer and one-on-one basis. Bankers, BlackRock, they don't like that. It's peer-to-peer, it's one-on-one. You and I want to do a little bit of business together. It's private, it's between us. You got a vehicle? I would like that vehicle. I want to buy it from you. I don't want my, information going out to people. Me and you, let's do it. Right? Peer-to-peer, privacy. The banks don't want that, especially the big dog, the Federal Reserve, because what do they want from that private transaction? A cut. They want a cut from you and from me. Oh, yeah, but Otter, hadn't we already been taxed on that income? Haven't I already been taxed every year for registration? Haven't I been taxed on my vehicle that I bought when I bought it? Haven't you been taxed on the money that you're going to use to buy it from me? Of course we have. Of course we have. But that's not the point. You still have a drop of blood. And they want it. You still have a little bit of money left. And they want it. Okay? So when you deal on a peer-to-peer level, like Reggie of Veritasium, they don't like you. They don't want you, and they're going to violate your patents. Because, well, they own the banks, they own the courts, they own everything. Pretty much. Except for us. Let's keep it that way. So, here, this is from, I haven't heard about this place, but I just stumbled into it today. CoinGape. Whatever. Anyway, how high can XRP price go if Swift integrates with Ripple this week? Whoa, well, what did we just... Swift integrating with Ripple? All right. For those of you who are not as crypto savvy as others, Swift. What does Swift mean? Swift is the transactional technology that we use today. It's been used since the 70s or 80s, I think. So when you put your debit card in, you put your credit card in, you either slide it in, you swipe it, or you tap it, whatever you do, that system that pays for your Gatorade at the Quickie Mart, okay, that system goes to the bank and then to the vendor. Very slow process in technological terms. And it's old. But the key thing is that the Federal Reserve owns it. Yes. Now, what is Ripple? Ripple is the company that owns XRP. And up and coming, and perhaps some people believe something that will actually eclipse the Bitcoin. I'm sure. But I've got a little bag of that XRP. Okay? So, Sue says if we pay taxes when we buy the vehicle and when we sell, we can't write off our own vehicle payments? No, we can't. Why? And well, that's because they're the boss. They make the rules. You're not, Sue. You don't get to make the rules. All you get to do is pay. Pay and pay. That's all you can do because that's all they want you to do. Again, this is changing. Lord willing, it changes quickly, and we'll see. And we'll get into that a little bit because there's sparks flying now between Trump and Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve. XRP price, this is from CoinGape again. XRP price is at a pivotal point as the Ripple community eagerly awaits the integration of the Swift payments network. Speculation is rife that Swift will integrate the Ripple network this week. And if this happens, how high will this top altcoin rally? Wow. In recent weeks, several influential voices have pointed to a possible announcement from Swift. It could be the official confirmation that XRP, through Ripple, that's their parent company, will become part of Swift's global payment infrastructure used by over 11,000 financial institutions worldwide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think that's going to do to XRP? And we'll talk at the very basic level, the price of XRP. What do you think it's going to do to the price of XRP? And I think you know what that is. So Sue says, isn't that an implied power? Yeah, it is implied. But implication is not enough for the Federal Reserve, Sue. They want to slap you in the face with it. And I could get very ugly about this, but again, kids are watching. But they're going to slap you in the face with it. They want you to know who the boss is. Okay? They got a boot on your neck, and they're micturating upon your back and telling you it's raining. That is the Federal Reserve. Ninja newsletter. Yes. The Ninja newsletter. The Economic Ninja. Remember him? I've mentioned him a few times. Give him a follow. Got a good newsletter every week. I'm going to give you some highlights. The Onyx coin. Remember them? I know you do, Sue. XCN coin. The Onyx coin team is cautious and hiding their faces, says the Ninja, due to possible fear of non-compliance with rapidly changing government regulations similar to Gemini's position. Now, Gemini had a scandal in the back, not a scandal, but in the background, in the history. They had some issues with, of course, the usual suspects. But again, this is news to temper you, perhaps, but the fact of the matter is these regulations are going to get ironed out. It's going to happen. Sooner or later, and hopefully sooner, they're going to be ironed out. Okay? So, here's the next one that the Ninja puts up. Onyx coin, same XCN coin, aims to revolutionize banking and lending, particularly in the peer-to-peer lending. There it is again, ladies and gentlemen. Peer-to-peer. We don't need the stinking banks. Why do you think Bitcoin Otter is a private membership association? Because we don't need the stinking banks. We need each other. So, particularly in the peer-to-peer lending sector, which has attracted opposition from traditional banks. You don't say, Ninja. Traditional banks are perceived as attacking innovative blockchain projects like Onyx Coin, highlighting the tension between established financial institutions and emerging technologies. See, what is in the way of us being like the Jetsons, okay? Flying around in flying cars and stuff like that? What is in the way? You know, those pesky traditional financial institutions. That's what's in the way. Because again, they want to cut and they don't want you. So, this is from Zero Hedge. I'm not going to do it. Now, he was much more eloquent, okay? And if you haven't seen this, let me give you a synopsis of what happened this week at the White House with two great world leaders sitting side by side at the White House. One, our very own Donald Trump. The other, El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele. And these two guys were a tour de force that the media could not handle, especially Caitlin. I'm going to censor myself here. Anyway, Caitlin Collins got a comeuppance, okay? She really did. It was, check out, all you got to do is put in the keywords and you're going to find the video. It's very, very satisfying. So this is out of Zero Hedge. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, will not return an El Salvadoran citizen mistakenly deported from the United States. And that's up for debate, right? Suggesting that to return the man would be to smuggle a terrorist in the United States. Finally, somebody's talking sense. Let me give you a little, a short version of what happened. So they're talking Trump, Bukele, they're talking this and that. And then in comes Caitlin Collins. Okay, a deep state asset if you've ever seen one. And she asks Donald Trump, so what are we going to do about this guy? Are we going to get him back? Okay, so she wants a confirmed MS. I don't care what you've heard. He's confirmed MS-13. Confirmed MS-13. And we got more info in a little bit about this guy. Yeah, you don't want him in your neighborhood. So this guy, they sent on, Con Air all the way back to El Salvador, and now he's in that Supermax in Bukele's country, right? So Caitlin Collins cares so much about gang members that she wants to know what we're going to do about it, and she's asking Donald Trump, hey, are you going to bring him back? Are you going to get him back? So Donald Trump's like, what are you talking about? He's an El Sal citizen, okay? I can't kidnap an El Salvadoran citizen to bring him back to the United States. That is illegal, Caitlin. He wasn't so nice, but that is illegal. She doesn't care, of course. She wants a soundbite. So, actually, no, I'm mistaken. Trump kicked it off to Stephen Miller, okay? So Stephen Miller, one of his cabinet members, said such things, said the same thing. He's not a citizen of our country. We can't grab him from another country and bring him in. How are we going to do that? So Donald Trump then says, okay, why don't you ask the president? He's right here, Mr. Bukele. So she asks him, and what is he? He knocks it out of the park. He tells her, listen, if you're asking me, if you're proposing that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, I can't do that. That's illegal. Ladies and gentlemen, what did they just do? They told you everything you need to know about the last 4 years. We have been inviting criminals. The other countries have been smuggling the criminals, and you and I lose. Now it's time to get rid of them. But little people, like Caitlin Collins, don't want that because she gets paid a lot of money to stir up strife and tell you what she believes, which she knows is a lie. But she's going to tell you what she believes. And it ain't right. Not one bit is it right. So, let's see if we got anybody up here throwing out comments. I don't see any right now. So, here's part of this. Again, the zero hedge part. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller also chimed in saying, so that's very arrogant, even for American media, to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens. But that's American media, Mr. Miller. They know how to handle everything. And you know what? That hand that's up their tuchus, moving their mouth, that's the true handle. Those are their handlers, okay? So, again, from Zero Hedge. Oh, this is a beautiful one. You guys are going to love this. You're going to love it. Trump threatens Harvard's tax-exempt status amid federal funding freeze. Ladies and gentlemen, there is some comeuppance. These universities that have been plaguing the education of our young people for generations, these woke institutions of criminal activity, because I do believe it's criminal what they do to young people. Harvard is in up to their neck in all this. The standoff, oh, thank you, Sue, by the way. You're the one who threw this up for me. The standoff between woke elites at Harvard University and the Trump administration is growing more tense by the day. On Tuesday morning, President Trump wrote on Truth Social, perhaps Harvard should lose its tax-exempt status. Ooh, they're going into sacred ground. And be taxed as a political entity if it keeps pushing political, ideological, and terrorist-inspired supporting sickness. Remember, tax-exempt status is totally contingent on acting in the public interest. Yes, 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 yes. Oh, Harvard. Oh, Harvard. You are so despicable. That was me. Trump's comments came a day after the U.S. General Services Administration and Department of Education froze. See, the Department of Education is good for something. $2.2 billion in grants to the woke Ivy League school, hours after it rejected the administration's demands to eliminate toxic DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those of you who think we are afraid to say the fake name of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which really means, boiled down, screw normalcy. We've got a corrupt way to do it. programs and screen international students for ideological concerns. Meanwhile, Harvard elites, check this out, guys, have a $53 billion endowment. And they want your money. They want taxpayer money. But they have $53 billion in reserve. But they want your money. Yes. How much is a substandard Harvard education nowadays? What are they going to teach your kids? What are they going to indoctrinate your kids into for your money? Oh, man. So apparently this is tens of billions of dollars higher than Yale's endowment of $10 billion. So where do you think more corruption resides? Just a guess. 53 billion to 10 billion. Chihuahuas. Democrats, again, zero hedge, are furious as Arizona plans to remove 50,000 non-citizens from voter rolls. You may as well transpose Democrats with communists. You might as well do it. It's apropos and very fitting. Yeah, same. Anyway, another win for election integrity is unfolding in Arizona, where state officials are partnering with DHS to verify voter rolls. Ladies and gentlemen, Kari Lake was robbed in Arizona. The biggest wart on the tuchus of Arizona is Maricopa County. The corruption there goes through the roof. Okay? It is so disgusting. I mean, we need, again, Joe, we need a spittoon if you're watching. Joe usually tunes in on the way home from the university, right? We need a spittoon because when these, like Maricopa, they've done it. They've sullied the very name of a probably indigenous people by using that for their seat of corruption. But I digress. So, as many as 50,000 non-citizens are expected to be removed. Kari Lake lost by I don't know. She didn't really lose, of course. But they cheated to the extent that she supposedly lost by a mere couple thousand. So this comes as following a successful lawsuit by America First Legal against 15 Arizona, all 15. Apparently there's 15. I'm used to Texas, which we have what? Hey guys, roughly 14,000 counties here in Texas, you think? Renee, Juan, what, 14,000 counties? Yeah, something like that in Texas. Apparently they only have 15 in Arizona. Anyway, military.com. Military to take over federal land along border under new Trump order. Isn't this a beautiful thing? Why do I say that? Are they going to stomp on some butterflies? They might. Trump's memo released publicly Friday stated the effort will initially implement this memorandum on a limited sector of federal lands designated by the Secretary of Defense. So they're initially going for the Roosevelt Tract reservation, and it's not an Indian reservation. It exclusively excludes, if you want to use that redundant terminology, indigenous lands. So, and then we're going to get the stolen land thing. Anybody? No. Fort Huachuca, Arizona. It's near there. So anyway, this is the initial stage, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give you, again, this is out of military.com, and military is not under any liberty whatsoever. Well, maybe liberty, but certainly not compunction to tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But I'll tell you what I believe this is coming from. So first, I'm going to do the break. We're halfway through the Bitcoin Otter Show, ladies and gentlemen. Again, going out, McAllen, 97.7 FM, KCYP, the city. We're here at the McAllen Creative Incubator. We're also going out on the 97.7 YouTube channel. We're going out on the Christopher Ott YouTube channel. We're going out on 97.7 Facebook and Christopher Ott Facebook. Check us out. Also, 2 apps you can hear 97.7 KCYP, the city, from. It's TuneIn Radio and Radio Garden. Good apps. You can check out all the radio stations in the world, literally. Well, maybe not all of them, but stations from around the world, including 97.7 KCYP, the city. Now, what do we mean by this military on federal lands thing. First of all, I'm going to go way back and tell you about the Insurrection Act. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and that's your prerogative. But I believe, a crackpot theory that says we are in a position of devolution. What is devolution? And I'm not talking about human devolution, which occurs every day, but I'm talking about devolution of government. So there is a plan, and if any of you are in government, you know that there is a coup for every government agency, every government entity, and every government building has to have a coup, okay? A continuation of operations plan for the government installation, the government agency, the government branch, whatever. So a devolution is the thought that if you are up into the fully functional portion of your department or agency, if there is an attack, if there is a force of nature, a hurricane, an emergency, a plane crashes into you, whatever, you must devolve to either an alternative, tactical operations center or something of that nature. You must devolve not only your people, but you must also allocate your resources to either different locations or spread it out to different entities, a share alike kind of thing. But it's a plan. Excuse me. It's a plan that says that if this happens, then this. Okay? If this, then that. Very logical. It might, be redundant at many times, but it is in effect. Now, this devolution plan that I'm talking about is that we are currently in a devolution, meaning we as Americans are in the situation where the Insurrection Act, as a matter of devolution, had to be activated. Why would someone enact the Insurrection Act? Well, because it was an insurrection. What do you think 2020 was? Do you really think Donald Trump lost? Even the communists know that Donald Trump didn't lose, except for maybe the really rabid ones. They are, hook, line, and sinker, hooked in that whole Marxist mess. They might think that Donald Trump actually lost. The rest of us know that nobody wins all of the swing states and loses the election, among many, many other things. So, fact of the matter is, we were overthrown, just like Ukraine in 2014. We were overthrown in 2020. Okay? Now, the Patriots had enough control, and I think a lot of it, because the Patriots are in control, to retain the government and many other things. So what we are seeing right now is a soft, if you will, example of martial law. We've been in it since the overthrow of our country in 2020. Perhaps even sooner, but I doubt it. Now, if you care to go into the Insurrection Act and you read it in its legal verbiage, you will see that when the judicial branch fails, when the legislative branch fails, and when the executive branch fails, then we are then under the obligation as a peoples to allow the military to control, the military to govern. And I believe that in a fifth generational warfare type of scenario, that's what's going on now. So the Patriots are in control. And this is not, the service members running around in high heels, the DEI people. It's not them. It's real generals. Like, Donald Trump always tells us that there are TV generals and then there's real generals. So in this example, it's real generals. Brian, good to see you. He's here for the Bitcoin Otter show. He says, what do you think about tariffs? Donald Trump is really shaking the snow globe. Yes, he is, Brian. Yes, he is. I'll get with the tariffs in a second. I want to mention this. Continue on this whole thing where the military is going into these reservations. Do not forget that the Trump administration has correctly labeled cartels as terrorist organizations. What does that entail? Well, it entails warfare. who better than to prosecute warfare than the U.S. military? Now, they have been, in my opinion, our young generations have been unjustly, criminally exposed to harm. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to get it, a little bit out of character here if I go too far. But our young men and women have been used and abused in the world to project banking power. Because remember, all wars are bankers' wars. Now, what we are embarking upon now, to whatever degree we don't know as average people, with this whole designation of cartels as terrorist organizations, is something that is new to us. Because the bankers own the cartels and they own the product of the cartels, and the bankers facilitate. You don't believe me? You have to come to this side and see that there are probably more banks in McAllen, Texas, than there are taquerias, and we're on the Mexican border. Anyway, so since the banks own all that stuff, the fact of the matter is that we're probably going to see sparks fly, maybe even, kinetic contact. So we here in the Valley, even in Texas on the Rio Grande, we have a lot of federal lands. We even had things called butterfly parks where, and I won't get into this too deeply, but corrupt people run them, and then they facilitate the smuggling of narcotics through the butterfly park. They do this. It's in the news. Yes, it's open intel. Okay? Anyway, so we have a situation where we might see backup for the Border Patrol on the border in the terms of U.S. military. I'll keep you posted on that. Now, the tariffs, Brian, I'll talk about the tariffs a little bit. So I think there's now 130 nations willing to talk to the boss. Who's the boss? The United States. Why are we the boss? Because we've been paying all the bills. We've been paying all the bills. You have been paying all the bills worldwide. So finally, we get someone that represents the American people instead of the banks. And he says, hey, wait a minute. Time out. We are going to tariff you at the rate that you tariff us. Can you imagine that? The flipping of the tape? Whoa, wait a minute. The flipping of, who do we know that flipped the tables of the bankers? Do we know anyone throughout history that flipped the tables on the bankers? Anyone who's read their Bible certainly knows. The King of Kings did it. He went into the temple, flipped the bankers' tables because they were making money on his father's time, on his father's property. Anyway, here's where we go with these tariffs. It's going to be a rough, rocky time. And people are, whining and bitching and complaining as usual. Oh, Trump's tariffs on, Trump's tariffs off. Trump's on, Trump's off. Ladies and gentlemen, we saw what happened when the bankers manipulated the market after the Trump tariffs came into play. Went down. Great buying opportunity, by the way, if you got in on that. I don't know. It hit the Bitcoin for a little bit too. But anyway, what we're talking about here is an opportunity for us to recoup our tax dollars, right? So the tariffs mean that other nations are going to pay their fair share to do business with the U.S. And it's even more than that. Because businesses that were exported by the likes of Bush, Clinton, Obama, all these people, right? They exported your jobs. The jobs that our kids had a chance at were exported. Now they're coming back because these companies are realizing it's going to be more beneficial to them to set up shop, build factories, create industry, manufacture things here in the United States. That's what the tariffs are all about. And it's working already. It's working. Yes, 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 and yes. So, here's some good news. This comes out of X. Corporations bought over 95,000 Bitcoin in quarter one. Do I need to repeat that? Corporations bought over 95,000 Bitcoin in quarter one. Jerry Klinger! Jerry Klingler is on. He says hello. He's got to go. Love you, Jerry. So, I'll tell you what. He's going to listen later. And a lot of you listen later. I know we don't have a lot in the chat today. That's fine. But I know a lot of you listen later. I get a ton of hits on the videos. Thank you very much. So, what we're talking about here, about, we got the tariffs. We've got the Bitcoin. Corporate buy-in, if you will. So, what does that mean to you and me? Get you some. Get you some before you can't. That's what it means. Now, I guess that's hyperbole on my part. There's a reason why, ladies and gentlemen, that the Satoshi is a 1/1,000,000th, okay, of a Bitcoin. The Satoshi is a breakdown, a tiny, tiny bit of the Bitcoin for a reason. Much like there is a 1 cent piece that's worth zero, but there's a 1 cent piece to the 100 cent dollar. It is broken down into such a small portion because at some point, even a Satoshi will be worth something. So, while we can't get a Bitcoin, most of us can't, shell out the 83 grand for a Bitcoin. I certainly can't. We can have a portion of a Bitcoin measured in dollars for now. $5, $10. You can buy it. You don't have to have $83,000 for a Bitcoin. Just so you know, just to remind you. This too is out of X. Bill Malugan. Fox News has obtained the written domestic violence allegations from Kilmar Abigail Garcia's wife. Ladies and gentlemen, this winner chicken dinner MS-13 guy that, ladies and gentlemen, family members of mine have on their Facebook feeds these suburban progressive women talking about this poor MS-13 guy. And they claim there's no verification that he's MS-13. He absolutely is verified. Even El Salvador, the home of MS-13, can verify this. So they, of course, are lying. But they are melting down because this poor man was via Orange Man. The Orange Express sent him home. Okay? So the fact of the matter is they are whining, they are crying over a man who is probably a killer. He's MS-13. He is definitely an illegal alien. Anything that gave him relief from deportation is an illegal order. Now, here's another one that they're going to love. And I'm going to use their terminology because these feminists, oh me, oh my, they're so righteous. Now, Fox News has obtained this. Fox News is also a liar, but there are other verification methods by which we know this is true. In fact, the actual documentation of the reports from that poor man's wife, in which she alleges he is a repeat wife beater. That poor man is a wife beater, and writes, at this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos, videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he has left me. What will a feminist say of this? A misogynist. That poor man. What is he going to do? It's her fault. Her fault. So, this poor man has at times punched her, scratched her eye, leaving her bleeding after throwing her laptop on the floor. Feminists, she can't watch your videos if the laptop's on the floor, just so you know. Anyway, she writes that on another day, he got angry again, started yelling, and ripped her shirt and shorts off. At this point, the feminists are saying small price to pay, sugar britches, small price to pay. He's a poor migrant, say the feminists. Leaving marks. That poor man left a mark. She also writes that in 2 times occurring in 2020, he hit her. November 2020, he hit me with his work boot. To which I'm sure the feminists will say, hey, he's got a job. If he's got a work boot, he's got to work. Safa, sister, say the feminazis. In August 2020, he hit me in the eye, leaving a purple eye. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gone full retard. There are women, and I don't know if you remember this, I don't know if you want to go to this, but there was a man named Louis Farrakhan. I don't share his faith beliefs, but he was dead on in one thing, dead on, when he said that the worst thing for freedom, the worst thing, and he was a proponent of black people, which is great. Black people are human. Where there is no race, ladies and gentlemen. There is no such thing as race. Okay? Humans that have more melanin than others. Black people. He was a very big proponent and had a lot of salient points. That's why they killed him. They being, the usual suspects. But his very, very true statement that he reasserted many times was that the worst enemy of the black people was the white liberal. Now, if you want to condense white liberalism to its most viral, toxic state, it's in a highly educated feminist. That is the height of toxicity when it comes to an enemy of civilization, because they're almost always wrong on all counts, and they don't back down. They will double down on everything. That is why I am being sarcastic, but also within sarcasm is a line of truth. And when it comes to these people, that line of truth is evident if you pay attention for more than 2 minutes to what they're saying. So the feminists are bemoaning the fact that this man, and these same feminists will hide this information from you. They'll hide. They won't talk about it in their podcasts, their rants, their reels, whatever you want to call them. And then you get very educated people. How do I know they're educated? The institutions have indoctrinated them with doctorate degrees. They are degreed in indoctrination. Obvious to see. So they will then tell you, no, they will inveigh against you. Their mantra that anyone they decide is a victim is a victim. Okay? Therefore, that poor man that beat up his wife, that poor man that tore off her clothes, threw her laptop down so she couldn't watch those, liberal, progressive feminists, that guy needs to come back. No matter what. He and his people need to come back. I touched on something here, and it just reminded me of something that happened this week. So, a person of one color, a young person of one color, was killed by a person of a different color. All we are as humans are people with different melanin contents. We are not a different race. However, throughout history, people of one melanin content go after people of another melanin content, and it results in injustice. There is a point at which the scales are weighing in one side much too much, and people who wish control over society, people who wish to manipulate and take advantage of people, enslave people, they use this coloration variation in humans to their advantage. Well, it's here again now, and it just is manifesting in a different way, because there was a young man of one color in it started out as a verbal altercation, and a young man of a different color had a weapon and said, "Hey, don't touch me," or something to the effect of "touch me and you'll find out." Well, the one color did indeed touch, and the other color stabbed with a knife in the heart. The young man, very young man, I think 17 or 18, in the heart, died there. He had a twin brother and died right in his arms. So the man of one color ran, and the police caught him. He said he did it, but he did it in self-defense. He went to jail, got arrested, went to jail. So there were people of his same color, and probably other colors, probably the same people are sticking up for this MS-13 gangbanger. Same people, probably donating money to this young man who stabbed another young man, an unarmed young man in the heart to cause his death. And this young man of a certain melanin content had a GoFundMe that went over $400,000. So the reports are now that his family has bought a new house, a new vehicle, an Escalade. If you know anything about vehicles, you know it's very expensive. With the proceeds of that, and to be more convenient to this young man who, by all accounts, killed another young man. Whether it was in self-defense, we'll find out. He had I think $1 million bond, and then it went down to $250,000 so that he could get out of jail and do whatever he wants on the outside with a new house and an Escalade. So what we see is nothing in the realm of justice occurring in the same, how would you say, zeitgeist as these crazed, highly educated, perhaps even Harvard educated $53 billion in endowment is Harvard, but they want your money. That is what we are churning out, ladies and gentlemen, because our country has been infiltrated from within. I'm going to reference this again. It is a 1982, you can find this on YouTube, 1982 interview of Yuri Bezmenov, who was a Soviet defector. And he, in this interview, outlined and step by step gave an account of how communists infiltrate free nations. And you can see just by what he says that in 1982, and he said they had been doing it since the 60s or before, 50s maybe, it has been underway. Ladies and gentlemen, it is in full swing, 2025. But I am happy and that we are the resistance. We are resisting and successfully. I thank you for doing your part, whatever that is. If it's talking to friends, talking to family, whatever that is, thank you for doing your part. Because as a criminal once said, it takes a village. That criminal is horrific, and she probably should not have even come into my mind. But that criminal named Hillary Clinton, at the very least, had a point, meaning we as people need to come together, not under a government mantle, not under public funding, so people who don't agree with us have to pay for what we believe, but under a community sentiment that helps us all. And where does that start? It starts with God himself. Because as I said, and I mean it, there is no other race than the human race. Now, you can talk about aliens, but we don't have verification for that, okay? We're talking about those aliens. And I'm doing this for a reason. And those of you who know. that those are the aliens behind this, and those are the people who worship this, and those are the people, okay? And I'm doing the sign of the Baphomet. If you don't understand it, it's an evil entity that is worshipped by the people of Hollywood, Washington, D.C., music, etc., etc. But I digress. God, the God of gods, Jesus, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, okay? He is where successful humanitarian nations are built upon his foundation, as was the United States of America. Now, it has been corrupted along the way, of course. Our enemy, the ultimate enemy, Satan, does not leave anything untainted on this world. So once we have that established, and you don't have to necessarily even have that if you have a person who is able to abide by civil duties. When we come together and we go for our God and then our family and then our country, we have aligned things in such a way that we all benefit. Now, some people might say, oh, wow, hey, Otter, what about those crusades, the Christian crusade? Ladies and gentlemen, Jesus is the one that told us that our weapons, okay, are not of this world. The Crusaders used weapons of this world, if I'm not mistaken. Do you really think Jesus would have done all that? No. That was people. So once we come into this line and we come together, we're going to win. And here's a little bit more, before I sign off, a little bit more winning. This is from the X22 report on X. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announced that her department is cutting $2.7 million in grants to Harvard. We're winning. If Harvard fails to comply with DHS requirements, they may lose the ability to enroll foreign students. Wow. Wouldn't that be a shame? Tulsi Gabbard, another strong woman. Feminists hate strong women. Real strong women. Why? Because they're independent. Feminists do not want independence. Well, for them they do, but not for you. Tulsi Gabbard announced that her office has obtained evidence of massive vulnerabilities on voting machines. You don't say! That allow hackers to flip votes. You don't say. Do you really think there's evidence for that? We've been telling you, ladies and gentlemen. We have been telling you. Okay? Future proves past. If you know, you know. And another woman. You know who's the feminist now? Pam Bondi. And you know what? You know what really? And yeah, this is a man. I'm a man, right? So I'm going to say it. You know one thing that just slaps you in the face, the commonality between these three? They're attractive women. Unlike the feminazis. Take me to task on that. Call me what you want. But Pam Bondi files a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education for the reckless and harmful refusal to safeguard women and girls in sports and private spaces. Yeah. Big hairy men that have shaved are beating the piss out of little girls. But that's not a bad thing according to the feminists. No, it's not. Because it goes right along with their worldview. Pam Bondi, a strong, independent woman, she feels differently. So she's going against the Maine Department of Education, who had a very unattractive head that said, you know what, we're not going to stop our diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. If this is as, how would you say, thought-provoking to you as it is to me, then we're on the same page. Doesn't mean we're always right. Just means that we care about our country and we care about each other. Thank you for tuning in. I ask God to bless you, to bless your families, to bless our beloved country, the United States of America, and that we will have a good, productive, and safe week. In the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Have a great week. I love you.
This is the Bitcoin Otter.